Question number 1 is asking us that to address the challenge of climate change, developing countries urgently require which of the following? A useful technique that we will be using here is to look at the keywords in each of the options and start eliminating the incorrect options. The keyword in the last option is tax. There is no mention of any tax in the entire passage. So option D can be eliminated. While there is a mention of precautionary and prompt action here, there is no specific mention of any short-term plans in the entire passage. So option B can also be eliminated. Technological solutions are mentioned here, and national adaptation plans are mentioned here. So the answer can be A or C. Now look at the keyword in the question, which is urgently. When we scan through the entire passage, we see that the word urgent is mentioned here, which means that we have to focus on this part of the passage. And this is talking about the urgent need to implement national adaptation plans. So option A is the correct answer. In question 2, we have been asked to identify which of the following are factors of vulnerability of poor people to climate changes. This is mostly a direct question, because the answer can be found directly in the passage with a little bit of interpretation. Dependence on natural resources is a factor mentioned here. Geographical attributes are covered under geography, which is mentioned here as geography. Lack of financial resources. Here the passage states that poor people rarely have insurance and that poor communities are already struggling to cope with the existing challenges of poverty, which means that lack of financial resources is definitely a factor. Coming to lack of traditional knowledge, this is not a factor, because here the passage says that local coping strategies are an important element of planning for adaptation. Traditional knowledge can help to provide efficient, appropriate and time-tested ways. And here there is a large body of knowledge and experience within local communities. This is nothing but local knowledge and traditional knowledge. So when we look at both of these statements, it means that lack of traditional knowledge is not a factor. So the correct option must have 1, 2 and 3, which is option D. Coming to question number 3, which of the following is against the idea portrayed in the passage? In other words, which of these statements is not supported by the passage and is the opposite of what the passage is saying? This question can be answered by either identifying the correct option or by eliminating the incorrect options, or if we just read the answer options carefully and apply a little logic, we can directly answer this question even without reading the passage. If we read this option B, it says that the process of adaptation to climate change does not take into account the factor of prevailing national circumstances. Now, national circumstances means what the nation or the country is going through. Suppose if the nation has severe poverty, then the first priority of the government will be to ensure that the basic necessities for survival, such as food, water and shelter, are made available to the citizens. The country cannot be expected to ignore the situation and such national circumstances and work on climate change related matters. Similarly, if the country is at war, then the survival of the country is of primary importance. All the resources may have been focused on the war efforts, and the country cannot ignore the circumstances and work on adapting to climate change. So this statement B by itself is incorrect. So like this, by applying a little common sense and reading the answer options carefully, this question can be answered directly without even referring to the passage. Even when we read the passage, it says that the need of adaptation interventions depends on national circumstances, which is the opposite of statement B. Now let us quickly see how the other statements are supported by the passage. The passage talks about national adaptation plans and that local coping strategies and knowledge must be used in synergy with government and local interventions, which means that the passage is saying that coordination between regional and national efforts is necessary. Vulnerability to climate change also has social, economic and political dimensions. So the passage is supporting the statement that social dimensions of climate change also need to be appreciated. Here the passage is talking about the importance of traditional knowledge. Here it is talking about the need for synergy between local strategies and government interventions. And here it is saying that apart from technological options, other strategies are also essential. When we interpret all of these, the passage is supporting the statement that combining traditional knowledge with appropriate technology is the need of the hour. So option B is not supported and the other options are supported by the passage. Coming to question number 4. The traditional knowledge should be used through which of the following? This is a direct question because the answer is the passage itself. This sentence says that local coping strategies and knowledge need to be used in synergy with government and local interventions. The local knowledge being referred to here is nothing but traditional knowledge. The passage itself clarifies this here, which says that traditional knowledge can help. So, traditional knowledge needs to be used in synergy with government and local interventions. Therefore, option B is correct. Let's look at the other options. While the passage says that adaptation interventions depend on national circumstances, there is no mention of any improvement. And the passage does not say anything about any climate change tax or specifically talk about dissemination or spreading of traditional knowledge. So option B is the correct answer. Question 5 is asking what is the meaning of the word resilience occurring in the passage. First of all, let us eliminate the obviously incorrect options. Fragility and vulnerability are the opposites or the antonyms of resilience. So they are incorrect options. Since we have to identify the meaning of resilience in the context of the passage, focus on the paragraph where it is mentioned. In the context of climate change, resilience refers to a community or the system's ability to adapt and to respond effectively to shocks or stresses. Essentially, being flexible in the face of changing conditions. This involves adjusting or adapting behavior and strategies as necessary to cope with current and future climate related challenges. So, option C, flexibility, is the best meaning of resilience in this context. When we read through the rest of the passage, it talks about adapt to changing dynamics, adaptation with an uncertain future, adapting by making appropriate adjustments and changes, all of which support option C. In a way, toughness is also associated with resilience. But toughness is more about standing firm or being rigid, even when climate change is happening. But here the passage is talking about adapting or changing to deal with climate change. So toughness is not the correct option.